America holds $38 trillion in debt. Europe holds 14 trillion. Japan holds 9 trillion. China, Germany, Saudi Arabia, everyone. So, if everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? What you'll learn by the end of this video will shake everything you know about economics. But first, we need to go back to 1694. Right now, the world carries $315 trillion in debt, 3 times the size of the global economy. America is in debt. Europe is in debt. China is in debt. Even you are in debt. Your credit card, your mortgage, your student loan. But here's the strange part. If everyone is in debt, then who is the creditor? The answer is actually quite simple and very disturbing. The creditor is ourselves. To understand this, we need to go back 330 years to London. Because debt wasn't invented on Wall Street. It was invented on the battlefield. 1694. England is at war with France. The king is running out of gold. What does he do? He goes to the merchants. He says, "Give me money. I'll pay you interest. Guaranteed." And at that moment, the modern financial system is born. The Bank of England is established. For the first time in history, a state can spend money it hasn't earned yet. This is called a bond, a government bond. And this bond can be bought, sold, transferred. A piece of paper becomes more valuable than gold. This doesn't stay in England. France copies it. The Netherlands refines it. The newly independent America finances its revolution with this system. National debt is no longer a failure. It becomes a measure of credibility. The ability to borrow means the ability to rule. Empires no longer conquer land to extract gold. They collect interest by selling bonds. The battlefield moves to the stock exchange. And 300 years later today, the world is under $315 trillion of debt. Every 90 days, another $1 trillion is added. Every country is in debt. Within those countries, every bank is a creditor. And every citizen, through taxes, savings, pension funds, is both debtor and creditor. So who's really on the other end of this rope? Let's look at America's $38 trillion debt. Roughly half of it is publicly held debt, meaning it's not owed to government institutions but to investors. So who are these investors? 2/3 of them are American. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining third, about $9 trillion, is held abroad. Japan is the largest foreign holder, around $1 trillion. China has roughly 800 billion. Then the United Kingdom, Luxembourg, Belgium. So when people say the US owes China, that statement is only partially true, and it represents just 2% of total US debt. Most of America's debt is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in return. Americans pay taxes. Those taxes pay bond interest. That interest flows back into American retirement accounts. The debt is real, but the creditor is a reflection of the same system, a circular loop. And this loop isn't unique to America. It's global. Japan lends to the US through Treasury bonds. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations via the World Bank. Developing countries, in turn, lend back to advanced economies by holding Western bonds as foreign exchange reserves. It's a global game of tag, not played by touch but with money. Every country holds another country's IOU. Every promise is backed by another promise, like a poker table where each player's chips are borrowed from the next. The only rule keeping the game alive: no one stands up from the table. But there's another layer, the most powerful one. Behind every government bond lies a network of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks managing trillions of dollars. They are the true managers of credit. They decide which countries can borrow cheaply, which must pay a premium to survive. When they lose confidence, currencies collapse, governments fall, and entire economies can be rebuilt overnight. Democracies choose who governs. Markets decide who survives. And at the center of this system stands the ultimate market maker of the modern age, central banks. Central banks don't merely manage debt, they create it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, it creates new money in return. A liability on one balance sheet becomes an asset on another. This is basic accounting. Every dollar in circulation represents debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every banknote, every digital dollar carries an invisible IOU. For decades, this system has survived on confidence. As long as investors believe governments will pay interest even if they never repay the principal, the machine keeps running. But what happens when confidence breaks? We've seen it before. 2010, Greece. Government debt becomes unsustainable. Bondholders panic. Yields explode. The ECB and IMF intervene, but the rescue comes at a cost: austerity, tax hikes, spending cuts, mass unemployment. For an entire generation, bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national trauma. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when the government ran out of foreign currency to service its loans. When the system breaks, creditors suddenly become visible. The IMF, rating agencies, anonymous bondholders, tightening their grip on entire nations. Yet after every collapse, the same cycle restarts. New loans replace old ones. Debts are restructured. The machine resets under a new name, because in the 21st century, debt is not designed to be repaid. It is designed to be rolled over. Governments today do not plan to pay off their debt. Not now. Not ever. This is not a conspiracy. This is policy. When you or I take out a loan, we are expected to repay the principal. Governments operate differently. They treat debt like a subscription, issuing new bonds to pay off old ones. A process economists call refinancing. The real product is interest, rent charged for stability. The global economy now depends on that rent, like a fish that must keep swimming to breathe. The United States will never pay off its $38 trillion debt. It will roll it over indefinitely. Japan has done so for decades. Debt exceeding 250% of GDP. Yet bond yields remain near zero. Investors are not waiting to be repaid. They are waiting for the deal to be renewed. Why? Because government debt is considered the safest collateral in existence. A US Treasury bond is not viewed as a liability, but as an asset. The cornerstone of global markets. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as collateral. Central banks treat it like money. The system depends on governments never fully paying off their debt, because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. Imagine if Washington somehow decided to pay off every dollar of its debt. Banks and funds worldwide would instantly lose their safest assets. The dollar supply would shrink dramatically, triggering deflation and collapse. Paying off the debt would destroy the very thing that keeps the economy alive. So governments do the opposite. They issue more, not chaotically, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism, pulsing through every pension fund, every mortgage, every market. And that is why when politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying down national debt, they are selling an illusion. The goal is not to eliminate debt, but to keep it sustainable, serviceable, and believable enough for the system to keep turning. Because once belief fades, numbers stop mattering, confidence collapses, interest rates spike, and an economy built entirely on rowing promises grinds to a halt. That is the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan was to make the world believe it would be. This is a closed loop of trust. And as long as that trust holds, the numbers can stretch indefinitely. But trust is not distributed equally. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that is only half true. Interest payments do not flow evenly through society. They flow upward, from taxpayers and workers to institutions and investors who hold the debt. Debt is not just a transfer between countries. It is a transfer between classes. That is why global inequality and global indebtedness rise together. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who only pay it. If this sounds familiar, it is because it is the same story, only scaled up, from households to nations, from nations to the entire planet. Creditors are not villains. Debtors are not victims. They are two gears of the same engine. The real question is what happens when the engine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can no longer keep pace with old promises. That is when the question, who is the creditor, stops being abstract and becomes personal, because at the top of this global pyramid, there is no single enemy to blame. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It is all of them, and us. The modern financial system has turned debt into money. Governments issue it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor has completely blurred. Debt once meant bondage. Today it means balance. But if that balance ever breaks, if confidence collapses, the illusion ends. And we will remember what debt really is, a promise that cannot be kept forever. But wait, there's one more piece to this story, and I'll tell it in the next video. There's something on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, something no one talks about, and that thing might be what's keeping this entire system standing, or what's going to bring it down. See you in the next video.